Sir, in India, educational outcomes overall is very poor, not optimal, but it's very evident in humanities rather than sciences. So, why do you think this is happening?
See, at least in sciences, in general, no, we are pretty socialist in this respect. We messed up everywhere. Our education is a disaster. Let me first state that. Our self-image is that we are very educated people. We have our Sundar Pichais or Satya Nadallas or others doing supremely well. Many multinationals and at the top level, our people are occupying those positions. All this is true. But in a very large country, with a small elite education, if some people flourish globally, it's not a surprise. But what's happening to the bulk of our children is what's important. I can say without serious fear of contradiction, roughly about 95% of our children, 95% of our children in the country, they are hopelessly below global standards at school level. I am saying this with great deal of sense of responsibility and deliberately. I am not misspeaking. 95% of the kids in schools in India are hopelessly below global standards. 1% are as good as global, 5% a little close. Maybe another 10-15% they are below global standards, but with some effort and some hard work and some encouragement and opportunity, probably they can survive. But 80% have no chance at all. Their education is so flawed. It's not education, it's a misnomer, it's a myth that applies to sciences, mathematics, language, humanities. First, let us get that clear. Within that, it's much worse in humanities. Why? At least sciences and language, at least to the extent of English. English is, of course, terrible on the whole. But sciences, there are global standards. Even if your inputs are very bad, you can always rely, if your parents pay some attention, if your school is a little more progressive, if your teacher is much more concerned about you, then there is a global knowledge being created. And science is global, universal. There is no Indian science, there is no Chinese science, there is no American science. Therefore, even if there are deficiencies in the system, with a bit of effort, you can hopefully improve the quality. At least some of the professional courses, not all colleges, but at least some of the better colleges, because there's a universality to science. Humanities, while there are some broader principles applicable to all of humankind, in reality they are situation specific. They are applicable to your society. When you are not generating knowledge in your country, and there's almost no serious R&D in India, whether sciences or humanities, when you're not generating enough knowledge here, when there are no professional institutions banking on global knowledge created, and therefore at least imparting some of it to us, humanities are even worse off. And there is a third issue. The world no longer divides knowledge into humanities and basic sciences. In the basic sciences, world no longer divides that into physical sciences and natural sciences. Everything is now related to everything else. A lot of medicine is now engineering, biophysics, biomedical engineering, and chemistry, biochemistry. Without biochemistry, there is no modern medicine. And genetics is actually molecular level chemistry. So even healthcare, which is the most applied science, most important applied science perhaps in modern humanity, you cannot really say it's only natural science. So like that, in an interdisciplinary world, humanities are very much meshed with scientific disciplines to the extent that they are applicable to enhancing the human welfare and improving the quality of life. You cannot really separate. And so there is an all-round challenge. Humanities even more so because we have so far been somewhat incapable of generating new knowledge. And we are not able to establish benchmarks and standards relevant to our society, as opposed to sciences where there's a global benchmark and global generation of knowledge. But in general, both school education and higher education, India right now is in a perilous state. And the people cannot be blamed, because there's enormous demand for education in this country. The kids cannot be blamed. They work very hard. The amount of stress Indian kids go through, they're comparable to the most stressed kids in the world in education. So it's not the parents of the kids. It's not even the governments in the broad sense that governments are spending humongous sums of money. Some people very casually, cavalierly say, if only you spend 6% of GDP on education things will improve. No, it's not absolute nonsense. There are states which are spending 80 to 90,000 rupees per child per year on school education, which is a phenomenal sum of money. So it's not spending money. And the outcomes are as bad as the fellows who are spending 30,000 rupees. So while more money is welcome, that is not the real challenge. The challenge is that we have to fundamentally change the pedagogy and fundamentally focus on the outcomes rather than the inputs, and define the outcomes better, define success better, and measure it honestly and intelligently. And until we get it right, the Indian children will not get what they deserve, and Indian nation will not prosper, because without skills, what is modern economy? If you know only how to dig a pit and fill a pit, that was okay for 10,000 years during the agricultural revolution. Even that I don't think our kids know. If you put them to agriculture, I don't think they know how to plow the land, how to dig the earth, and how to fill a pit. Even that they don't know. So they know neither that nor this, for no fault of theirs. And millions of children, their future is devastated. Their future is determined by the circumstances of birth, not by the talent given by nature, or not by the hard work they're willing to put in. It's a tragedy, a monumental tragedy enveloping us. And I think this is the most important challenge facing us, but easily correctable because demand side is very strong. Very, very strong, unlike many other countries. Indian families, Hindu or Muslim, rich or poor, urban or rural, upper caste, lower caste, they're all willing to die for their children's future. They are spending disproportionate sums to give them an advantage in terms of education. So the society values it. If only we do a few things right, we can transform education very quickly, and that is the most important need right now in the country.
It is a fact that the education in general and humanities in particular is relatively better in the West. So the government allowing the foreign universities to set up their campuses in India, will it improve the outcomes of the education quality?
There is no single silver bullet. We are so bad in both school education and college education. I don't think there is a single answer, but certainly it helps. Technology is one enabler. Yesterday, I was listening to a podcast by a private company. I was so thrilled. That they got it right. They understood the crisis of school education. They're doing everything right, and all power to their railway. I want 100 such companies to grow on a scale to match India's needs. We desperately need that, for profit, non-profit, I don't care what it is. The children of India should get their best. Similarly, in higher education, there's no one single answer. And our notion that if only you put some more money, and anyway the money you put in is minuscule for higher education and R&D. 100 crores will not make a great university in today's world. And even if you put 100 crores or 1,000 crores, it does not become a great university overnight, because university is about a culture. It takes a generation or two. So given that context, we require everything. We require more investment, more focus on R&D, more incentives for doing it the right way, greater autonomy, like the current national education policy proposed, and greater market-oriented choice and competition for the parents, and global exposure, both digital and real. Therefore, if foreign universities are allowed to set up shop here, and if we do it right, it will bring down the cost of education, because even now, I think tens of thousands of Indian kids are going abroad for their undergraduation and post-graduation. Billions of dollars of money is flowing out of the country. Many families cannot afford it. So hopefully, if they do it in India, while still will be a little expensive, it will not be as expensive as abroad. At least the living costs will come down. And probably even the tuition costs can be brought down, because Indian costs are a little less for the same quality. And others will learn from their best practices. But there's no single silver bullet. But I'm a great supporter that we have to adopt the best practices from others, and we have to get the best institutions into the country, because there's so much of demand, and we are relatively fond of English speaking, even if not many people speak good English or even good Telugu or Tamil. That's our tragedy. But we are more comfortable with English than many other non-English speaking countries. Therefore, it's easier for the British, American, Australian, maybe New Zealand, other countries to establish shop here, the better universities. If we do it right, that certainly is one of the many steps we can take. But as I said, there's no single silver bullet. We must do whatever it takes to improve the quality of our education.